One of the things I've been asked to make is collard greens. And that is definitely a Southern thing, especially New Year's. That's one of the things that you traditionally are supposed to have on New Year's Day for good luck, along with black-eyed peas and cornbread. So this is how you make them. They are easy to make. I know years ago there was a lady at our church who would make them, and I begged her to tell me how to make them because I thought it was hard. And I was scared to try it. So there's a lot of Southern recipes that we are afraid to try because we think it's going to be hard, and it's really not. So super easy to do. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to take a huge pot, depending on how many collard greens you have. So for time's sake, if I can get fresh collard greens, I will get fresh collard greens any day. And if you know a local farmer who sells them or somebody who has them, or grow your own, I've grown my own too. So you will grow them in your garden, plant them in the fall, and then you harvest them anytime after the first frost. You're going to need that frost or else they're going to be bitter and they're not going to taste as good. So wait until after that first frost before you harvest them. And you can harvest them, late into the winter. It's not going to hurt anything, definitely not going to hurt the collard greens. So they will survive the colder temperatures in the south. And if you grow your own, that's how you're going to do it. You need to bring them in, you need to wash them probably 3 times, like really well, because they're going to have dirt, they're going to have sand on them depending on where you bought them from. So you need to get all that off because it will end up being in your pot with your collard greens, and you can taste it, and you don't want to taste the grit and have to chew on that. So wash them really well. You can buy them at the grocery store, and you can even buy them in bags at the grocery store that are pre-cut or pre-shredded. And that's what I bought for this time. Normally I don't do that. I will at least buy them whole in the grocery store and then bring them home and chop them up. But this time they are shredded. So whatever size pot will fit the amount of collard greens you have. And just know that whenever you cook them, you're going to end up with about half as much as you had when you started, because they are going to wilt and they are going to cook down. So the first thing that I've done, you do need some type of meat in your collard greens, and what I always use without fail is called salt pork, and this is half of the package that's left. With salt pork, it's almost like bacon. It looks like bacon, but with a hard rind on the side of it. It is way saltier than bacon. It's not something you're going to want to fry and eat without soaking it or fixing it like you would strickling, if you're familiar with that. This is sliced in the package, so it's ready to go, and it's going to look and be packaged a lot like bacon, except for it's, probably, I want to say about 4 inches long versus a long strip of bacon. So I take about 4 to 6 slices and I fry them in my pot before I ever put my collard greens in there. Once I've fried them, it'll render all that fat. If you don't have time to do that, you can just throw them in the water with your collard greens and they will cook out the fat, and it will flavor your collard greens just fine. I just like to go ahead and fry it before I put my collard greens in there, and go ahead and get that fat in there and let it season your collard greens a little bit sooner. And then you're going to want to add salt and pepper. So salt, you can't add enough salt to begin with. So I'm going to put in 1 tablespoon of salt. And I know that sounds like a lot, but at the end, you'll taste it and check it. Once it has cooked long enough, we'll taste it and see if it's salty enough. If it's not, we'll add salt before it's finished cooking. If it's too salty, we'll just throw a potato in there. You can throw a whole potato in there, and it'll absorb all that extra salt. So what we'll do now is completely cover these, plus I would say about 1 inch of water over the top to 2 inches, because it is, as it boils and as it cooks, it is going to evaporate and cook some of that water out. And you want to keep an eye on it, keep adding water as you need to. Once it gets closer to the end of being cooked, I don't add water. I just let it just enough to where it's just covered with water, or just enough water to come up to the top of the collard greens, and that's as much as I need in there. I don't want to add any more at that point. And you can freeze these when they're done. I'll cook a big batch of them, and whatever's left I'll put in the freezer, and I'll use it in soups, or I'll just have enough to eat with another meal. So they can be frozen in zipper bags and kept in the freezer for probably 3 to 6 months would be fine. So now I'm going to cover this with water, put it on the oven, and once it comes to a boil, I'm just going to let it sit at probably medium low, however your stove works best, to keep it cooking at a low boil for 3 hours. And yes, that is a long time. Yes, you can cook them in the pressure cooker. I've not ever tried to cook them in the crock pot. I'm not real sure that they would get as done as you need them to get in like an 8 to 10 hour span. So go ahead, put them on the stove, let them cook. I do let them cook for 3 hours because those stalks are very tough, and it takes that long for them to get tender enough for how I like them. So that's all there is to it. So we're going to put it on the stove, let it boil for 3 hours, and then we'll be right back, and you can see what the finished product looks like. So once your collard greens are all done, this is what they look like. And I will probably throw some cornbread in there with that, or at least that soup that's in them, the liquid, over some cornbread and eat that. But this is how they turn out, and they are so delicious. So let me know if you try it, and I hope you enjoy it.